you should pick the microphone that's in the headset too. I don't know. So we had a bit of a plumbing malfunction. So I'm going to do one batch of this new color today until my husband comes back with a new hose. So yeah. So I have our fiber sitting here that I weighed out, and then I'm going to mix the dye, and then we'll get the fiber in the pan and dye it. So this is just kind of a little bit of a look into our dyeing. We do the other way. Normally we hand paint, we lay it across the table and hand paint it, but our plumbing malfunction set us back. So
And Kristen, I'm just dropping the link to your website into the chat for everyone here so that they can find your wonderful stuff. So they get inspired by colors.
One. This one. Oh, buddy. Hey.
Really?
So I laid out my dye. I used 3 colors today. I'm going to mix it. This is hot water out of the kettle. And my favorite tool, I would have to say, is a milk frother. So if you guys have any questions, just shoot them off as you go. It's pretty straightforward. I feel like that.
What type of fiber are you dyeing for us today, Kristen?
I am dyeing, it's a Superwash Merino and Stellina blend. It was the only one that I could think of that I can dye without having to soak it first, since we're short on water. Also, it's fun. I like the Stellina blend. I know it's Superwash, but it still spins up really nice. Then you grab a couple of pans. These are referred to as hotel trays, I guess. Most indie dyers use them. I like to use the 2.5 ones, 2.5 inch deep ones. And then I'm going to put 1/2 gallon of water in each pan. And then so because we're dyeing with Stellina, I can't use citric acid because it'll damage the Stellina. So I gotta use vinegar. And then I just kind of, oh, hold on. I just kind of put some gloves on first. All right, and then I just kind of lay it in, going up and down. I can fit 8 ounces of fiber, so that's 2 braids per pan, which is really cool. And because I didn't pre-wet this fiber, it's gonna float until I smush it in. And we'll grab our other braid. So this, like, you can't see it. This light's blowing it out. No, okay. Well, I tried. So this one has gold Stellina in it. So it's got the gold glitter. This is what we call the Glitter Merino. It always sells out fast for us. All right. So let me just squish it down a little. It's all right if it's not completely wet, because for the way that we're going to dye this, we want a low water table because we're going to add all this liquid dye in. Now, if I was doing like dry powder or something, I'd want more water. And then I already have our warming cabinet on heating up. So as soon as we get the dye placed onto this, we can pop it in the cabinet. And I typically cook these for 4 hours in the cabinet because our cabinet's basically like a very large oven. It goes slow and low. This is always what takes the longest, putting the fiber in the pan. It's not the dyeing part, it's the prep. So we have our acid already in the pan. We use the vinegar. And then this is a superwash, so I don't have to worry about agitating it too much, but I still don't want to mess it up. Slide some of this water down. But also the way that we're dyeing this is it's not warm. So you also don't have to worry about the felting as much also. So I'm going to layer these colors in. I have a yellow, a blue, and basically like an aquamarine. So it's like a blue-green. Huh?
Oh, it sounded like someone had some background noise going on there.
Oh, okay. Well, my husband is hooking up the new hose. So I'm just gonna into so whenever I make a new color, I try to make it reproducible. So that's what I'm thinking about when I put colors in places. So we're gonna continue to layer our color. So we're gonna smush our yellow in. Make sure it goes all the way to the bottom. This is pretty much kind of set already because we used the hot water for the dye. The water's still pretty warm, so it's already setting.
Okay.
Well, that was special.
Yeah, you know, the wonders of the internet.
And I have this issue because it does it on my phone where it just kicks me out randomly, and it's kind of weird. I was like, oh, we'll do it on the laptop. It won't have any problems. Just joking. So my goal here is not to have any yellow showing because I want to make this green with the blue and the yellow. But I still want blue.
Yeah.
Well, put some over here. I just don't want that on one pan. This is always what's fun about dyeing like this. You can just kind of get all willy-nilly with it. And then this is it's kind of like a blue-green aqua. Set it over the rest of that yellow. Oops. So even though this is kind of a green, by layering it over the yellow, I make it more green. And the yellow that we used was a fluorescent dye, so it just kind of like gives it that extra pizzazz. Let's see, we'll do that right there. There's hardly any there. Of course, I'm a messy dyer. I make a mess.
That's half the fun.
Yeah, I was like, are you even having fun if you're not making a mess? So I'm just kind of distributing the color to make sure it goes all the way through. So see, we have a bunch of white there. And part of that is because there's 8 ounces of fiber in here. If we did 4 ounces, it'd have way more room to breathe. And we'll just pick it up, let some of that dye go under there. That's also part of kind of like the negative space, like when you're painting and stuff. So it adds a little variation. So I'm gonna pick this side up. Well, just a little bit of dye to go under there. This is where we're getting the different shades of blue and green underneath. Just picking up the small traces of dye. And then because this is a superwash, most of this color is already set. Pretty good. So we have a light side and a dark side. That's part of making a new color. You want some tones in there. So we need to spin this up, but it'll give you a little bit of variation. I would show yarn dyeing, but that takes longer than 30 minutes. The way that I dye yarn, it takes a few hours because we have so many layers. So we're just gonna clean this up a little bit. So this is showing up a lot more blown out than it really is. Oops. Stay in here, buddy. So these are a bit softer aquas. We got some green from where we put our yellow in. And then we have some darker green from where it was just the aqua. We have some darker blue just from the solid blue. So, and then when you look on the other side, you have deeper color. So, because the way that we put this in, we did back and forth. So on one part of the braid, you'll have a little bit deeper color. And on the other part, you'll have this lighter color. So it kind of evens out when you go to spin it up. And of course, we have the Stellina. So all that sparkle. Let me grab some lids. Throw this in here. Where are we at the time? 10 minutes. So, does anybody got any questions? Any method, dye secrets? Any questions on how to dye? Over there. Some laptop. Let's see. So this is our dye studio, which is also our garage. And then here's our big giant warmer. And I cook everything from fiber to yarn to fleece in there. How does the dye not go all over the pan? So the reason it doesn't go all over the pan is because we only put like half a gallon of water in there for 8 ounces. So like I said, we wanted a low water table. So after I put the fiber in there, there was like barely any extra water, right? And so when I poured in our liquid dye, that kind of helped make it like a normal water level. Does that make sense?
At what point in the process does the acid go in, the vinegar? Was that mixed in with the water, or will that come later?
No, that was mixed in. So I put the half gallon of water in each pan, and then I poured some of the vinegar in there. I normally use citric acid, and so you would see like a couple scoops of acid go in, and then I'd have to mix it up. But because we're using the Stellina, the citric acid is too strong of an acid, and it will damage the Stellina. It's a little same thing with yarn. The yarns that have the Stellina in it, the citric acid is too strong, it will damage the Stellina. So that was like a low water table. If I was doing a high water table, I would put in like a whole gallon of water per 8 ounces of fiber. And that's more for like a tonal semi-solid look for the fiber. This one, we wanted that variegation. So I didn't want to put as much water in. And then normally the way that we hand paint our braids is I lay out some saran wrap and then I laid the fiber over and we dye 1 pound at a time on the table. And I literally, for each color, I'll have a full mason jar. And then we do about 5 to 6 colors per braid. So that's enough acid and enough liquid dye for a whole pound of fiber. And then we just kind of wrap it up in a burrito and then put it in the cooker for 4 hours. So I was hoping to get to show you that part, but we had a plumbing issue. I guess our hose broke to our sink. That's fine because I came out here and my light and my plug wasn't working, and I'm like, okay.
It's always something, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's new, because I spent like 10 minutes trying to get the kettle to turn on. Like, okay. So let's see what else. Any other questions? See, we normally have our fiber in a laundry bag. So this is 1 pound of fiber, and we will soak it in a Synthropol bath to get all of the extra lanolin. And then when the mills process the wool, they sometimes spray like an oil on it to help with the static. And so it gets all that extra oil lanolin off, and it helps the fibers, or it helps the fiber take the color in more. That's why a lot of our colors are different from everybody else's, because they're so saturated. When you say paint, do you mean with airbrush? So when I hand paint the fiber, I literally am pouring the liquid dye onto the fiber and smushing it in with my hand. With my hand. So
Painting is a bit of a misnomer.
yeah, we're not painting with like a brush or anything. I'm literally just pouring dye in a spot and I'm smushing it in. And because we pretty much just like what they call space dye, so we'll have like a block of 6 to 8 inches of one color, and then the next color will have the next block. And I do try to get the 2 colors to kind of mix and make that in between color. That way you don't have that big jump when you're spinning. Kind of finger painting, yeah. Wear gloves though. Yes, when you're working with acid dyes, because there's acid in them, you definitely have to wear some sort of gloves, whether it's the dishwashing gloves, the rubber gloves, because it's the acid. Also, the dyes, some of them might be safe for skin contact, but not all of them are, and you just don't want to, like, your body's going to absorb those chemicals and pigments and metals and stuff, and you don't want that. That can make you sick. And then whenever you're messing with dry dye, you don't have to get a respirator like this. If you're not like a production dyer, like an indie dyer, this is just easier. You can get a regular N95. Some people use the paper, like hospital masks. Just something to catch the particles, and trust me, the dry dye particles do travel, because I could be mixing dye over here and find turquoise dye over by my washer. But this one is good if you're in the industry. I do this whenever I'm mixing dye stock, and then also whenever I'm speckling for like my yarn and stuff. So definitely gotta be safe. Any other questions? This thing popped up over the chat box. And those, if you want to get into dyeing seriously, those respirators are on Amazon. They're really easy. There is a disclaimer where it's like you're using this for occupational use and not like the pandemic. And you're like, yeah, occupational use.
And just one last time, I'm going to drop the link to your website into the chat.
Yes, I made it really easy.
Come see her at Stitches SoCal.
Yep, you'll see me at Stitches SoCal, and you will see me again tomorrow.
Wow.
Tomorrow I will be showing off our other dye colors and our fiber bases, and then I will have these done, washed and dried, and show you the final product. So that's fun, because I live out in the desert and everything dries in 5 minutes. I'm like, I normally work at night. I work the night shift to avoid the heat. I mean, it's still hot, but it's the sun's not on. That's what we say. The sun's not on, so it's cooler. But yeah, so you can find us at desertpandafiberarts.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Desert Panda Fiber Arts. And then also on Instagram. However, on Instagram, it's different because we lost our Instagram account. So it's _ Desert Panda Fiber Arts _. So. But we will be back tomorrow.
So
and we will be at SoCal.
what is your, I'm just beginning to spin. What is your most popular top or braid or fiber wise?
If you're beginning to spin, I would always recommend something like Falkland or Polworth.
Okay.
Because it's what they call a little bit more toothier. It's easier to learn. A lot of people say merino is hard to learn on. It's just more of, you got to figure out how to spin the merino. It is a little bit slicker because it's a lot finer fiber.
Right. Are the blends tricky, like your blends with the bamboo and the silk? And
so the merino bamboo silk is a little bit tricky because it's a slick fiber. The bamboo is slick, and like I still have an issue trying to spin with it. Because sometimes that one's not finely blended. So you'll get like a bamboo patch where it's just all bamboo and then it just wants to fly off, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But the blends like Polworth silk, we're out of the BFL silk right now, but we're gonna get some more. The merino yak silk, all of those ones, the silk is finely blended. So like, unless you're like holding it up to the light, you won't see the shimmer. A lot of times the comb tops will have like ribbons of silk, and that's where you have that issue with spinning because the silk will just take off and fly out of your hand. But the ones that I have are finely blended into the wool. And so like it's, at first you don't see the silk, but once you start getting it spun up, you can see the shimmer from the silk. It's really finely blended. It's awesome. And
it would have a little more drape. Probably.
Yes, it does. How much?
What is BFL like? Sorry.
BFL is kind of like what you would say a toothier fiber. It's more towards like a medium wool. But it still can be next to skin soft. We do carry like a white BFL, and we do have some that's like what we call our dark BFL, which starts off as a natural brown. And then we have like an oatmeal BFL silk that we use, which is like an in-between of the white and the dark. They kind of blend them together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. How much fiber to spin for a pair of socks? Typically, people only use one braid of fiber. It really kind of depends on how thick you're spinning. If you're spinning for a fingering weight, then just the 4-ounce braid, because the standard mill spun fingering weight is 3.5 ounces. So you're actually getting an extra 0.5 ounce to, it's kind of like your safety net. Make sure you have enough fiber. Well, that is it for us today. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to message us. Like I said, we're on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a chat feature on our website. If you have any questions, if you're, don't know which blend is better for beginners or for socks, or, however just be aware that even though the chat message says that it's available 24/7, I'll still have to answer the message, and sometimes I'm busy. So thank you for coming, and thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow when I get to show off the new color. I'm kind of excited about it.
It's fun.
So thank you.
Thanks.